Welcome back. This is day 2, and what we're talking about is how to build your own financial plan so that one day you can be rich. And by our definition, rich is very simple. It is where your money works for you and you no longer have to work for your money. And I'll tell you why that definition is so simple, because it means that you can focus on what really matters, which is the cash flow that comes from your investments. So rich is not necessarily some big amount of money that maybe you will accomplish sometime in the future. Rich is merely where you have enough sources of income coming in so that it'll cover all of your monthly overhead. So if you have $5,000 a month in monthly overhead and you got $5,000 a month coming in passive income, well, our definition means that you have accomplished, being rich. So that's where your money's working for you. You no longer have to work for your money. Now, the key differentiator here is that it cannot be from the sweat of your own brow. It has to be passive income. So $5,000 a month from real estate sales, where you're the one doing the sale, that's not the same as, say, for example, $5,000 a month from a paid off rental property, or $5,000 a month from a dividend paying stock, or $5,000 a month, for example, from EXP revenue share or something like that. So keep all these things in mind as we go through this. And the reason I started out with that is because I want all of you to realize that you can enjoy the sense of being rich, being financially free, having your money work for you, no longer having to work for your money, without having to have millions and millions and millions of dollars. So this is an obtainable goal for all of you to accomplish. Remember, this is part 2, and I want you to go back and listen to part 1, which is obviously available everywhere for you to download and stream. Speaking of which, if you want the notes from today's podcast, and yesterday's podcast, and all of our thousands and thousands of past podcasts, they're available for you to download at harrisrealestatedaily.com. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, just check to see if you're paying
I
attention.
am.
harrisrealestatedaily.com is our daily newsletter where we publish all of our, obviously our notes and some other unique content just for the newsletter. So if you want to have access to our notes, Harris Real Estate Daily is your source. In the meantime, just go to Harris Real Estate Daily and opt in. Remember, when you put your email address in, it's not enough. You have to go to your email and you have to click that you want the subscription, and then you're off to the races, and it costs you nothing. You can also scroll down below in the show description from iTunes, YouTube, and whatnot, and click the link there to join Harris Real Estate Daily. So, Julie, we're on to part 2, and this is Escape Velocity, Achieving Financial Freedom and Building a Legacy.
Exactly. So in part 1 yesterday, we covered foundational steps to establish your path towards financial freedom. So today, in part 2, we're going to explore how to break free from financial instability, sustain your wealth, and create a legacy that benefits generations. So this is point 3 of part 2, Escape Velocity, breaking free from financial instability. Escape velocity is the point where your passive income exceeds your monthly expenses, allowing you to step away from the grind and live life on your terms. So we've got 4 specific bullet points. Tim told you how to get the notes, so now is the time to tune in your ears. The first bullet point is expand your real estate portfolio. Definitely in all of your wheelhouse, our listeners. We know that about you. Invest in additional properties with high ROI and long-term appreciation potential.
Now, it says invest in additional properties because if you'd listened to yesterday's show, point number 2 was starting to purchase rental properties so you can build your portfolio. So just understanding that there's processes and there's steps that you have to go through to get to the point where you are starting to experience real financial freedom.
That's right. And if you're frustrated because you live in an expensive market and you can't really identify, the best rental might be $700,000 or $800,000 in your market, and it doesn't have a great ROI, and maybe it even is a little bit older and is going to have repairs. It's okay to look outside of your own backyard. It's one of the great benefits that our coaching clients find with each other and networking with each other is they can, we bought one from through one of our coaches who is also a long-term coaching client, Brandon, and that'll work out fine because you can find people that you trust. You can find property managers. You can put on warranties, and you can invest in other markets. So don't close your mind just because you live in an expensive market.
So we gave you some examples of that on yesterday's podcast. So make sure you listen to yesterday's show for some suggested areas where you can buy properties for usually under $225,000, sometimes under $200,000. And actually, it's very easy to cash flow those. But again, listen to yesterday's show.
Exactly. Okay, second point. Leverage home equity. Tap into the equity of your primary residence to fund new investments or pay down other debt, fueling further growth.
Now I'm going to stop off there. Yeah. Personally, I don't like that point.
I don't like that one as much.
And I got this. I used that point because some people are going to say, well, am I going to get the down payment to purchase a rental property? So I'm going to tell you guys, I think something that if you open your minds to what I'm about to say will save you a lot of angst. I've never met somebody with no debt that went bankrupt. Okay, so I've never met somebody with no debt or with no leverage that went bankrupt. And a lot of what's in the zeitgeist nowadays are people are saying constantly, you buy a property, you then hold it for 12 months, 24 months, you refinance, you pull out the equity, then you buy another one, then you buy another one, then you buy another one. And yes, on paper, you'll have a big net worth. But who gives a rat's ass? Because that doesn't necessarily mean those properties are actually cash flowing. So you could end up with $10 million or $20 million of the property that has virtually no cash flow from it. And then if you have a lot of the, especially if you're buying multifamilies, those are usually short, 5-year, 7-year, 3-year adjustable rate mortgages. And if all of a sudden the rates are adjusting to higher, percents, you're not able then to cash flow it at all. What if some of your properties need roofs and all kinds of other repairs?
And too many go vacant at the same time. The neighborhood changes on you. There's so many threat vectors, as you would say.
Right. So that's the reason we're really discouraging you. We'd rather have you guys have fewer rental properties with no debt than having a bunch of rental properties with debt, because there's too many, as Julia was just alluding to, threat vectors for having too much debt, and you'll never be financially free. And I realize that every, overnight success real estate investor on Instagram is telling you the exact opposite. Our perspective as someone who's actually been there, done that, and have helped thousands of other people to be there, done that. And if you really want to be free, where your money's working for you, you no longer work for your money, you have to have consistent cash flow. But if you end up basically with a bunch of rental properties, like a bunch of small little businesses, each property is essentially like a business. And if those are having cash flow problems, you're now having to rob Peter to pay Paul. You haven't gotten anywhere. You're not building wealth. So you might end up with 10 properties, but if they all have mortgages and 3 of them are vacant, you're now taking the positive cash flow from the ones, and then paying towards the payments on the ones that don't. So do this laboriously. Don't overcommit. And I know a lot of people will suggest you borrow from Peter or you borrow from your primary residence to invest in rental properties. Just be super careful with any form of debt. Debt is the greatest killer of potential. And again, I know every single Robert Kiyosaki and everybody else, they always like to talk about how much debt they have. And I know at a certain scale that actually starts to make sense because you make the debt work for you. But almost all of you listening to us today, you just need to play it tight. So if you need $5,000 or $10,000 a month to pay all your personal bills, and at that point, or $20,000, whatever your number is, and once you have accomplished that goal, at that point, you are essentially rich, or your money's working for you. You no longer work for your money. That is your first milestone. That is the first goal you need to accomplish. And by focusing on keeping your own personal overhead low, and then frankly not accumulating too much debt, you'll get there a lot faster. That should be self-evident to all of you. So Julie, the next point is maximize compounding returns.
Reinvest rental income and dividends to amplify your wealth building efforts. So the first part, yesterday we were talking about how to create the income to buy those assets. Now we're talking about, let's say you've got 2 or 3 rental properties and maybe you're netting, $2,000 or $3,000 a month from that. Invest what you're making from the rental properties so that you can get that compounding interest that, as we said yesterday, Warren Buffett said is the 8th wonder of the world. You've got to invest it. Don't just sit on that and, over leverage yourself in the things that you just talked about.
So just think about what Julie just said, and we kind of laddered all this out for you guys yesterday. Mm-hmm. So you're going to build a profitable business. With a profitable business, you're going to take the profits and you're going to reinvest that money in things that are going to create profits for you passively. Rental property, dividend paying equity, things of that we're going to also share with you today. But the moral of the story is it all starts with having a profitable real estate business. And many of you are, you're getting efficient at selling houses, but there's not enough profit left over after you pay your taxes and personal overhead for you to actually, guess what? Buy a rental property. So one of the focuses we have of Premier Coaching is helping you guys get to the point where you can have consistent profit, real honest to God, 50, 60% profit from your real estate transactions. It's become normalized that real estate brokers are okay making 2 or 3%. Real estate teams are making 6 or 8%. Individual agents that are selling like maybe 20 or 30 houses per year, they're the ones making all the profit. Even if you run your business smart and you're with a great broker like eXp Realty and you're, again, selling 20 or 30 houses a year, you realize you're making more net profit than the agent or the team that's selling probably 200 or 300 homes.
Significantly more, actually. I can vouch for that from my own coaching clients that are exactly at that level. They're doing 20, 30, 40 homes a year, but their net is so much better because they're not spending it all to acquire the lead.
Well, let's give them an example, okay?
Sure.
So the average sale price in the United States is roughly $400,000. So let's just make the average commission, $12,000, just for the sake of conversation. So let's say the way we coach agents to build their businesses, if they want to start adding teams, they're going to start diluting their profit fast. And that's fine. I mean, if you want to get to the point where you're going to start adding more leverage, that's great. But you just got to do it in the right order. And if you build your business in the wrong order, if you start adding staff before you have consistent deal flow, you're going to make yourself broke. And that, unfortunately, is what happens to most teams. So with that aside, so let's say you have an average sale price of $400,000, an average gross commission of $12,000, and let's say you're, again, running your business smart. You've got maybe a virtual assistant, you're not doing a lot of marketing and advertising, you're doing proactive lead generating. Guys, you're making probably off every transaction around $9,000 or $10,000. So if you sell 40 houses, you're making $400,000 a year. Scale that up or down, right? Now, what will it take for a big team who has a margin of maybe 10% profit to make $400,000, $4 million in commission? That's what it would take. So the agent selling 40 houses will actually enjoy the same net or same cash flow as the agent that's having to sell probably in that same marketplace. I don't even know what would that be. 400 houses, something like that.
And all the stress that comes along with that.
Right. And then getting there and staying there and getting your team to, so look, again, we help teams scale. We help brokerages run profitable businesses. But you just got to do it in the right order, and you always got to lead with profit. As we talked about yesterday, and we talked about in this podcast a lot, in your business, any small business, by the way, your product ultimately, if you're a Bob's Pie Shop, you could say your product is Bob's Pies, but it's not really. It's the profit that comes from selling Bob's Pies. That's a mindset approach that Julie and I think all of you should adopt, because what that does, if you say my product is profit, and if you're focusing on profit, that does change how you go about making decisions, right? Doesn't it? When someone hits you with an idea for an ad or a marketing or branding campaign, and you will immediately run it through a lot more stringent filters, because you're focusing on hitting certain profit margins. And that's what we encourage all of you guys to do in your real estate businesses, because if you don't, you'll never have enough profit left over, especially in some states where they're paying a lot in taxes. You'll never have enough profit left over to reinvest in other things that will actually make you wealthy. And you'll have a nice lifestyle from selling real estate and doing a lot of transactions. But there will become a time when you want to have want to have passive income, and you won't want to necessarily have to hustle as hard as you had to in your formidable years in your real estate business. We're there to help you when you get there. The first natural step for all of you when you're on your real estate journey to success is become a Premier Coaching client, and we've made it very easy for you. You can join Premier Coaching right now by simply going to premiercoaching.com, and you can join Premier Coaching for free. And that does include a daily semi-private coaching call. It does include complete access to the first level of Premier Coaching. One of the first things that we want you to do when you become a Premier Coaching client is download your real estate treasure map. That's your fill-in-the-blank business and life plan. It goes over a lot of the numbers and the things that we've been drilling down with you guys in the last couple days on the show. So make sure you go to premiercoaching.com and definitely become a Premier Coaching client right away. You can also just text the word Premier to 47372, and we'll text you a link to join premiercoaching.com. And the link is also below. If you're on iTunes, YouTube, Stitcher, Spotify, etc., you can just scroll down to the show description and click the link to join Premier Coaching. Do that urgently. It's the next natural step for your continued, or really, I think, for you to really boost your business to the point where you will have escape velocity.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about our fourth bullet point, building multiple income streams, creating referral income, maybe, leveraging a team the right way, as we talked about a second ago, or developing digital products. We talked about rental properties a second ago, certainly revenue share if you're with EXP, for example, and, having multiple income streams, not just dependent, most of our listeners start out being just dependent on their commissions. That's their first revenue stream, right? And as you said, I think it's really important to hover there that stage one is getting really consistent at that month in and month out. It's not just having these income spurts and then feast and famine, but once you've gotten there, let's say that's stable now. You've got that income coming in. What would you recommend as their second income stream? If we're building multiple income streams, do you have a recommended what to do first, what to do next? Do you think it should be rentals first? Do you think it should be getting involved with, EXP? What should what should their next, how would you build it? What order would you do that smartly?
Well, definitely when it doesn't matter what your broker is, if you don't know how to build a profitable business that's based on proactively generating.
That's right.
So that's definitely number one. Number two, one of the reason that Julie and I joined with EXP in 2019 was because it had a lot of really brilliant built-in ways for agents to build essentially additional profit spokes, additional profit generators. And for example, revenue share. For example, you can add agents to your team or recruit agents, sponsor agents in EXP, and you can get paid a portion of the commissions that they bring in. And we have agents in our group that are earning literally tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars per month, dear listener, off revenue share from EXP Realty. So I would definitely start out by having a mindset that you're going to build a very profitable real estate practice. And that definitely has that requires skill. That requires patience. That requires having a professional, mature business mindset. Otherwise, you're going to get suckered into all the marketing and branding and ego stuff, all the narcissism.
And you won't get past that point to do these other things that we're talking about.
Because you won't have any profit.
Right, because you'll always be looking for that next transaction. That's your only revenue stream because you haven't gotten the skill to make that a consistent revenue stream.
And by the way, guys, the way to build consistent cash flow in your real estate business is not through buyers. It is definitely through listings, and that's the focus of Premier Coaching. It always will be. So then, yes, you definitely want to join Premier. You want to join Premier first of all, but then you want to absolutely consider becoming part of Julie and I's EXP Realty Group, and we will work with you hand in hand to help you obviously develop yourself as a real estate professional, but also build revenue share. Also take advantage of the different stock options that EXP has. So you can actually do what you're doing, selling real estate. We're going to help you maximize what you're doing from each real estate transaction. We're going to want you to, obviously charge the highest fee that the market will pay you. We want you, because the market's willing to pay it because you're worth it. We want you to learn how to charge transaction fees, make money off home warranties, run your expenses to the point where you're running as much profit margin as you possibly can. Join EXP Realty, start obviously creating revenue share, things like that. So that's step 1 and 2. And then after that, when you have consistent profit coming in, what happens usually, everyone seems to go through this, is lifestyle creep. And that's what you got to watch out for. You got to watch that all of a sudden, just because you're making a lot of money, maybe you're making hundreds of thousands of dollars per year. And after all, you might as well live like you are. So then you start having a more expensive this and a more expensive that, and there goes your profit again.
And now you have to, sell 20% more homes just
exactly.
to get back where you used to be.
Right, exactly. And then you have a bad month or a bad year, or there's some, who knows what's going to happen, a black swan event, and then you ruin your cash flow for 6 months, and there goes your savings, right? So we want you to remember to keep your personal burn rate and your business burn rate as low as you can until the point where you have escape velocity, where you have multiple streams of income that are producing enough money for you. So if you have to have $10,000 a month coming in from, say, for your business, and let's say it takes you 6 months to do that consistently, all right, good. Nice. Now you're very good. Now we're going to have you maximize additional sources of income from EXP Realty. Then after that, you've got money coming in from 2 different sources. Then we're going to ask you to take that profit and reinvest that into savings to buy rental properties. And we're going to help you identify where in the country you should be buying rental properties, and frankly, how many you're going to need. This is going to take a while. I'm just being 100% direct with you guys. What's going to happen over the next 3 to 5 years is you'll have your real estate business, which will make more money consistently. You'll have your different revenue sources inside your real estate business. Then you'll have EXP Realty, hopefully, that's making you passive income. Then your rental properties will start making you passive income. So the next 3 to 5 years, you're going to see all these plates spinning to generate passive income for you. And altogether, they're not enough. I mean, they're enough to cover all your overhead, but we want each of these to cover all your personal overhead. And then maybe 5 years from now, the rental properties are throwing off $10,000 a month. Your passive income from EXP is throwing off $15,000 a month. You see what happened? You have to stick with a plan that will give you guys an off-ramp, if you choose to, from doing other things, and then you can be rich where your money works for you and no longer work for your money. If you want to talk about EXP Realty, if you're looking to upgrade your brokerage experience, we strongly encourage you to get a hold of us. We made it easy for you. You can text the letters EXP to 47372, and we'll text you back a link to learn more about our EXP Realty Group. Again, just text the letters EXP to 47372. If you're ready to land the plane, you've not yet chosen a sponsor for EXP Realty, you can text me directly at 512-758-0206. 512-758-0206. But remember, it all starts with building a profitable real estate practice, and everything else comes from that.
All right, so remember we had our rocket taking off analogy yesterday, right? So we started out by doing the ground game, getting your act together, getting your business together. That's before you've even tried to take off. What we just talked about was achieving escape velocity, breaking free from financial instability. And now we're going to talk about point number 4, orbital stability. Again, thinking about our rocket ship taking off, sustaining that financial freedom, consistent growth and preservation.
So the rockets, again, the rocket is, it's SpaceX, right? You're sitting there with Elon Musk. The rocket now, this, Falcon X, this massive thing, this building of a rocket, right? It's used all of its energy. It's finally broken free of the Earth's gravitational pull, and you're finally out in space. You still have to basically be monitoring everything. It's still going to, you're not going to. It's not complete passive. You can't just wait around for the essentially the velocity or the energy you built to get off.
You definitely have a dashboard to watch.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. All right, so at orbital stability, which is sustaining financial freedom, that's the 4th stage in your financial freedom plan,
which is consistent growth and preserving your wealth. Once you've achieved financial freedom, the focus shifts to sustaining and growing your wealth while protecting your assets. 3 bullet points here to think about. First one is to diversify your investments, expanding perhaps into multifamily units, commercial property, real estate investment trusts, or to reduce the risk and increase the returns. Again, all of this is in your real estate wheelhouse. Maybe you have to study it a little bit more, but we're definitely diversifying. Next bullet point is to optimize your cash flow by improving the profitability of your properties through strategic refinancing perhaps, or paying them off, or operational cost reductions. There's lots of directions to go on that, but the point is to optimize that cash flow, again, so you can reinvest it.
Now, I do want to say, again, we talk in these points, we're talking about somebody who might be gearing their mindset to buying multifamilies. There's nothing wrong with just buying single families.
Right.
And if you look at, it's not BlackRock. What's the company that's a subsidiary of BlackRock that buys the rental properties? Blackstone or something? It's like that.
Yeah.
So whatever their name is, they're buying single family homes. Mm-hmm. And so you got to think, why is a single family home going to be possibly a better invest for you than a multifamily? And I know this is going to raise the cackles of every single Robert Kiyosaki fan, of which Julie and I are, out there, who says just buy a multifamilies. Well, here's ultimately the challenge. First of all, it's easier to get a single family loan if you're going to borrow the money.
This is true.
Second of all, single families are easier to rent because everyone wants a single family. They have a tendency to appreciate quicker. They have a tendency to stay rented for longer. Single families, again, have a lot of spin-off business for you, because you could hypothetically put your single family rental for rent and then create real estate leads from that. You could hypothetically do it with the multifamily too, but it's not as easy.
It could be a VRBO, not so with the commercial property. They tend to be less expensive than a commercial property. Commercial property oftentimes, not always, but often is surrounded by some, more urban environment that could potentially turn against you sometimes. There's a lot of threat vectors.
But ultimately, with the multifamily, the big thing that gets a lot of agents who are investing in multifamilies before they have the cash flow to support it is just that. That is a small business. You're going to buy, say, a 20 family or 10 family. That's a small business with a big roof,
And 10 furnaces and air conditioners.
And exactly.
Dishwashers.
100%. And so unless you've got the financial ability to weather the storm of the roof blowing off and the homeowner's insurance going through the roof and the washing machine flooding the second, all this crap, unless you've got the know-how, unless you've got the cash flow to support all of that, you're going to have some problems. And single families are much easier to manage, much easier to, frankly, service when they break. You just put home warranties on all of them and have the tenants basically deal directly with the American Home Shield warranty.
And you can sell them if you feel like it.
Exactly. Now, again, where you win on this long term, and this is 100% against what everyone else is going to tell you, but is having these things paid off and leaving them paid off, and think of each of your rental properties as in a little lockbox, or that you never open. You just keep the cash flow from them, and that way, if you have enough of these paid off rental properties, you'll never be poor. And depending on what your number is, like for example, if you need $10,000 a month or $5,000 a month, and you have, let's say, 3 paid off rental properties or 5 paid off rental properties, you're never going to be poor, because you're always going to have those properties that are going to be appreciating in value, inflating in value, and produce positive cash flow.
Now, if you've built your other revenue streams, you can take that income instead of living on it and reinvest it, making more money with your money.
That's what Julie and I have done for the last 2 decades. Is we've not taken personal cash flow from any of our rental properties, we've just reinvested all that money into the stock market, and we just continued to make earned income from our main business. That's what we've done forever, and that's what you guys should think about doing as well. But there might come a time where Julie and I just decide to hang up our coaching shingle, and I don't even know what the hell we do, to be honest. It'll probably never happen. I'm just kidding myself when I say that, but there might. You never know.
It's nice to have the option.
Yeah, it's nice to have the option. So that's really what we'll suggest. But we have had dozens of coaching clients who followed this plan and have got to the point where they had, like, say, they needed $10,000 a month, and now they're making $20,000 a month from passive income, where they do quit, they do retire, and you know what? God bless them. I get it.
That was the point.
It's not like owning your business is trauma-free. I mean, I heard Elon Musk this morning. Being an entrepreneur and owning your own business is like chewing glass while staring into the abyss.
Wow, that's a good visual. It can be. You often say, you're running your antivirus software subconsciously all the time, even when you're asleep.
But it's true though. If you think about it, when you have a small business, or any business really, you don't stop thinking, whether it's in the front of your mind or the back of your mind. You're thinking about your business all the damn time.
Yeah.
Because it's called being a business owner. And if you stop thinking about it, well, sure enough, something is going to get by you. Well, you might get to the point where one day you just choose no longer to actually have that antivirus software constantly running in your brain. Give yourself give the future version of yourself the ability to walk away if you choose to. That's, if nothing else, that's a great sense of relief that you could, if you chose to, you could walk away. You could live off your passive income.
Exactly. So bullet point number 3, protect those assets using trusts, LLCs, and insurance to safeguard your wealth from legal and financial risks. I do talk, as you do with our private coaching clients, a lot about getting those assets that they've worked so hard to build into a trust so they can protect that.
Let me just give them the overarching trust structure. So every asset you have should be in an LLC, a separate LLC, and all those LLCs should be owned by a trust. Now, you're going to talk to your local attorney, and your attorney says it's going to set your trust up in the state in which you're domiciled. The problem is not all state trust laws are the same. As far as I know, last time I researched this, Nevada spendthrift trusts are the best trust structures there are for U.S. citizens in the world. So
and you don't have to live in Nevada.
You don't have to live in Nevada. So do a Nevada spendthrift trust. I do think South Dakota and Alaska are also building kick-ass trust structures. But a Nevada spendthrift trust, and your LLCs are, even if their LLCs are, owning assets that are in other states, it doesn't really matter. But that's a great trust. It's an asset protection trust ultimately. And then really, as far as insurance goes, you only want to keep insurance until the point where you can self-insure, because insurance by definition is a ripoff. Otherwise, insurance companies wouldn't be in business. So if you can get to the point where you've got enough money coming in and you don't have to have insurance because you've got enough, frankly, savings to cover any, like if you have, for example, if you're paying $4,000, $3,000 a month for health insurance, but you've got $1 million in cash or $500,000 in cash, you might not want to actually, and you're healthy, right? And you've got no real reason to think that you might need health insurance. Maybe that's something you can cancel and you can start investing that money. So it was not Warren Buffett, but Charlie Munger. He had no insurance on anything because he self-insured.
You have to.
Well, that's what you can get when you're basically at the point where you have a lot of assets and net worth. You can self-insure and you can start eliminating some of those expenses that people just, well, I guess I have to have insurance.
Right. Well, that's called orbital stability, right?
Right.
Sustaining your financial freedom. Okay, so remember, too, that most millionaires carefully track their expenses. They don't just put it in set it and forget it mode. We always recommend using monarchmoney.com. That's an easy way to have everything dashboarded in one place. But stay in control of your finances. And I would put, I don't know, it'll be interesting to see if you agree with this or not. I think through using things like Monarch Money, managing your own money and looking at it and not delegating everything to a bookkeeper and an accountant, like where they can write all the checks for you and you just totally set it and forget it and you're so far removed from it that things can maybe slip past the radar.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know of any. I don't know of anybody. Like I don't want to sound like a snob, but of all of our friends who are living here where we live, who are very successful, I don't know a single one of them that doesn't manage their own assets, and
right.
I don't know a single one of them that isn't omnipresent aware of all their financial the stuff that's going on. People think it's so silly, but people think that rich people don't think about money. Rich people obviously think about money or they wouldn't be rich. People
Right.
think that people with a lot of money, and you'll be the same way. Don't let sort of societal norms, oh, you're spending all your time thinking about money. Well, damn right I'm spending all my time thinking about money because I want to get to the point where I'm rich, right? So don't allow the, you got to stop and smell the roses type thinking get you off your mission, because what rich is, it's freedom. What you're really questing for is not just a bunch of numbers in a computer program saying what your net worth is. What you're really wanting more than anything is you want to be free, where your money works for you and you no longer have to work for your money. And that's going to be a very foreign, strange emotion to a lot of people. So don't be surprised as you climb the wealth ladder, as it were, that you find fewer and fewer people that you're passing along the way. Because most people they don't even try. They're just happy when they have consistent income from a job. And you're not like that, or you wouldn't be listening to this podcast. So you got to realize that this is a journey worth taking. That it'll take. It's doing what you don't want to do when you don't want to do it at the highest level. And anything worth having that's going to be, really meaningful is going to take a hell of a lot longer than you think it should. So just keep those things in mind and be patient. And don't overcomplicate things, for gosh sakes. If there are too many threat vectors, if there are too many, like I always think of these ridiculous funnels that agents create, for lead generation, all these different things. Anything with too many steps is going to break. It just is inefficient by its very nature. So you're going to have to think about, how can I create, like, for example, if you're going to be doing investing, here it is. Ready? Google this yourself. We talked about it yesterday. What was it?
VOO? No,
No,
bogleheads.
What?
Bogleheads? I'm trying to read your mind. Can I buy a vowel?
You're just throwing out words. Vanguard Index Funds. Vanguard Index Funds.
But I think that was through Bogleheads, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, Julie. Bogleheads is just a website where people can go. It's a forum where they can go and read about the ideal 3-fund or 5-fund portfolio.
Gotcha.
Google bogleheads.com, and you're going to then buy probably Vanguard Index Funds. You can buy them through any trading platform, Charles Schwab, whatever. No big deal to set up an account. Super easy. And then Julie was alluding to one of the index funds that we invest in, which is VOO. So research all this yourself, and you'll discover ultimately that investing in the stock market really comes down to investing in, like I said, 3 to 5 index funds, and do not make it any more complicated than that. You don't need a wealth advisor to basically stick your money into 3 to 5 index funds.
And charge you for it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And some of our wealthiest friends that I know, that's all they do. We know somebody who recently became a billionaire. A billionaire, okay? And guess where he's putting his money? I just told you. So you got to be thinking about why, like Warren Buffett, he did there was a contest, as it were, a challenge I think he threw out there. This was maybe 20, 25 years ago, where he said that he will pay $1 million to any hedge fund that can out-earn over 20 years the S&P 500. It was something like that. You guys may have heard this before. And there wasn't a single hedge fund that was able to actually do it, because they couldn't out-earn over time what the S&P 500 could do. So why would you overcomplicate things and think you have to have this big, ridiculous investment plan? Just invest in the S&P 500 through index funds like VOO, okay? So there it is. Research all this yourself. We're not financial advisors, but what I'm here to tell you is most of the people who you think are financial advisors, they're not financial advisors either. They're just insurance people. They're people that are trying to basically sell you things that have commissions, complicated health insurance, complicated life insurance, all this stuff. What's your mission here? Your mission is to be rich, where your money works for you, you no longer have to work for your money, and it's not that complicated.
Exactly. All right. Last but not least, point number 5, back to our rocket ship: interstellar wealth, legacy, and impact. Creating generational wealth. The final stage is about creating a lasting legacy of wealth and impact, ensuring that your success benefits future generations and leaves a positive mark. Things like developing a perpetual income source, multiple perpetual income sources. Again, focusing on rental properties, royalties, scalable business ventures that generate income indefinitely. And I would put the revenue share in that
that's what I was
as well.
about to say. Well, so Julie and I get royalties from our book. It's about enough to pay for like 5 pizzas per year. But like, for example, revenue share at EXP Realty, that's inheritable. Rental properties are obviously inheritable. So, there's different schools of thought on that, obviously. You might get to the point where you're going to have the potential of leaving tens of millions, if not $100 million of dollars to your kids. Is that a good idea? I'm going to go with probably not. But you got to think about that, how you want to essentially what your legacy is supposed to be. If you never get to the point where you have interstellar wealth and all you do is get to the point where you have enough wealth coming in so your money's working for you, you no longer have to work for your money, you've won the damn game.
Yeah.
Okay? Good job.
And protect what you've built, and that was for you. But if you get past that and you're in this interstellar wealth category, developing those perpetual income sources, planning for generational wealth. We talked about using trusts and estate planning tools to pass on your wealth to your heirs. You want to think about what you're doing there, how much you're going to pass on, wherever you want to send to charity, all of the different things. Giving back through your, contribute to your community with philanthropy, mentorship, funding meaningful projects. We're going to go to something tomorrow night that has to do with a lot of our neighbors and friends want to help the public library here. There's lots of different ways that you can give back. And your wealth tip is to align your wealth with your values by supporting causes that matter to you. Many high net worth individuals use philanthropy to create lasting impact. So build a life where your wealth works for you, benefits you and others, and secures financial freedom for generations potentially. You can do it.
Well, by the way, what a killer place to meet folks that you might be able to do real estate transactions
Seriously.
with. We'll strongly suggest, no matter where you are in your wealth building hierarchy, where you are in your rocket ship taking off, that you don't stop working. Stopping, and I know there's a lot of people that think that they're going to get to the point where they have enough passive income that they're going to stop working, and you can, but what will happen is the exact opposite. You're going to get to the point where you have passive income where you no longer have to work for money, where your money is working for you, but the nature of the work that you do completely changes because you're doing it now, essentially, like, for example, you're going to start going to some of these charity things. You're going to start donating money to the things you care about. And guess what's going to happen? You're going to start meeting a lot of very wealthy people. They're going to want to do real estate transactions. Mm-hmm. Maybe your goal was to buy a Ferrari, and now you're going to buy a Ferrari, and you're going to join the local Ferrari club. And you know who you're going to trip over? Real estate transactions. You guys get the point? Mm-hmm. So, maybe in the back of your mind, you want to get to the point where you no longer have to work. But one of the unfortunate things that happens is of a lot of people who do decide to stop working is they have a tendency to develop other types of problems that will result them ultimately having reversals of their fortunes. Never get to the point where you aren't making a contribution, to society and to yourself. You never want to basically become complacent. That's the main thing.
That's right. You can redefine your work. It's how you think about work, I think. And, some of those things that you go to, use the Ferrari example, some of those social events, a lot of those people are going to have very interesting businesses that expand your mindset, expand the things that you know about, and maybe you want to invest in some of those as well, not to mention the real estate transactions.
Well, it's like it's our saying, Julie, if you want ever increasing levels of success in your business and personal life, do what you don't want to do when you don't want to do it at the highest level. So what's going to happen is when you basically have reached essentially where you have escape velocity and orbital stability, you're rich, right? You then can start choosing, who you're going to, what you're going to do, when you're going to do it, at whatever level you choose to do it at. In other words, everything changes. You now have complete control over your time. You have complete control over who you choose to spend your time with. But until you get there, you're going to have to do what you don't want to do when you don't want to do it at the highest level consistently. And I promise you it's going to take longer than you think. Remember we told you yesterday that most people do not become single-digit millionaires until they're in their 50s and 60s. And why is that? Why is the highest percent of millionaires in the United States in their 50s and 60s? Because it takes that damn long. And by the way, how do most of them have most of their wealth? Real estate.
Yep.
And I'll share this also with you guys. Most of the wealthiest people in America are first generation. They made it themselves. It's like a highest percent. I forget what number it was, like over 90%.
Yes.
It's inherited wealth is just not a thing that you should ever think. It doesn't happen really. Most people earn their own money, and most people become millionaires from real estate. Most of the wealthiest folks in the United States earned it from real estate, and then what they do is once they become real estate rich, basically, then they get into things like private equity. They start investing in businesses, and they do things like that. That's the pathway. Don't try to create a different one. Just follow that one.
Well, I'm glad that you mentioned that it will take longer than anybody wants it to, but it will take shorter when you start today. When you do it incrementally, slow and steady, eventually, reaches escape velocity.
What is
right?
boring, honestly?
It's boring, it's predictable, it's slow and steady, but it will happen faster if you don't wait. It's like learning to be a proactive lead generator, right? You think it's going to take forever, But if you start today and you start honing your skill and having conversations with real people and increasing your skill level and getting more experience, you're going to get to the finish line faster.
We know two people who are billionaires from crypto. Okay, and prior to them being in crypto, they were not, as far as I know, they were not like business geniuses.
No.
They basically just bought crypto at the right time, wrote it up, and now they're they're billionaires. And they have amazing lives and amazing homes and amazing private jets and the whole thing. Okay, that's probably not going to happen for you. Because the reality of it is so yes, there are stories out there, and everyone wants to focus on that, the overnight, success story type thing. But the reality of it is most people, I'll say it again, you have to condition your mind so that you are willing to do what you don't want to do when you don't want to do it at the highest level for long periods of time. And all levels of meaningful success, whether it's health, whether it's your personal life, your spiritual life, your financial life, will take, for you to get to the point where you actually have consistency on those things, it's going to take longer than you think. And by longer than what you think, it could be decades before you got to the point where you're truly to the, where you're looking back and saying, damn, look what I've created financially. Now, the first step, though, for you to wrap your minds around is for you just to get to the first level where you do have, a resemblance of being rich, where your money works for you, you no longer have to work for your money. One of the key things is building a profitable real estate business, and then do not have an outrageous, personal and business overhead, and then start pouring the money into the things that are going to create passive income for you. eXp Realty, frankly, after you built your real estate business, is the easy button, as I've talked about. And then you can start buying dividend-paying stocks and start buying rental properties and all the rest of it. And then 5 years will pass, 10 years will pass, and then all of a sudden you're making $100,000, $200,000 a month passively. Guys, there's a lot of people that have done just that, but they don't have Instagram stories made on. People don't interview them on podcasts because it's not interesting. So Bob, how did you become worth $20 million? Well, I sold real estate.
$1 at a time.
$1 at a time. Every time I sold a house, I pulled off 20% and I bought a house and I did this and I did the other thing. And then I took the profit and I invested it in the stock market. Oh, the stock market. What'd you invest in, Bob? S&P 500, paid off my truck a couple years ago.
Well, that was the essence of, the original book about all this was The Millionaire Next Door.
Right.
And that they were talking about how boring it is. And it could be your next door neighbor. You don't even know because it wasn't sexy. They're not bragging about it. They're just doing it $1 at a time, And I have to point out, too, for those of you who are just getting started, and a lot of our coaching clients are like this, where they have now found, after increasing their skills and getting themselves out there and getting some experience and getting that predictability, now they're starting to make some investments where maybe the first thing that you cover, we were talking about rich is where your money's working for you. You're no longer working for your money. You've got your passive income first covering your monthly overhead and then making it so you can invest whatever in addition you're making, right? So they get excited at the first level. You don't have to always think about the finish line. What about covering just your business expenses from, say, your eXp revenue share? What if I've got coaching clients that cover most of their expenses with outbound referrals because they learned how to work that spoke, right? It's not just covering everything. It gets exciting along the way. What if your car payment was covered by your rental property, right?
So when that's exactly what Julie just said. When I have somebody that, for example, is thinking about joining eXp Realty and they're trying to understand their what revenue share will mean to them, and just focusing on explaining it without getting into all the complications of it, I just ask them to write down their 10 personal expenses from the smallest to the largest, and gas bill, electric bill, cell phone, all the rest of it. And then I say, well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to cover each of these things, starting with the least expensive, working up to the most expensive, with monthly revenue share. So yeah, now that you're making $300 a month in positive cash flow from revenue share consistently, that's covering maybe your
cell phone bill
or whatever it is, right? And so then you're going to, cover the next thing and next thing and next thing. And then after a year, you're going to have basically 90% of your personal overhead covered. And now the last big the last big thing to cover is going to be your house payment. You guys get it? That's boring. But you know what? That's consistent, and that's going to help you to win the game every single damn time.
I think it's actually really exciting when I talk to them. I mean, it sounds boring when you put it that way, but when you talk to somebody who has maybe achieved half of what you talked about, they got their car payment covered.
Oh, that's exciting.
They got their groceries covered. They've got their gas and their cell phone covered. Maybe half of their expenses are already covered. That is motivational because they see at that level they can do it. Like all of our listeners, all of you guys can do this. And I'm really glad that you mentioned at the top of this podcast, just to take this full circle, that a lot of people think that being wealthy is some number, right? When I have $1 million in the bank, when I have $10 million, when I finally sell my practice, which is unlikely, you have this nebulous, abstract thing floating out there, which is really hard to achieve. But when you actually define it, where maybe my monthly overhead is $5,000 a month, and if I had that coming in passively, boy, I would be wealthy, I would be rich, I'd at least feel like I was that way. That's something that every single person can achieve when you define it. Remember when we talk about goals in coaching, it's got to be specific, measurable, timely, all of those things. It's not just some, when I get $1 million, when I finally sell that big listing that I'll someday have. It's not that. It's covering first your monthly overhead and then investing after that and building your wealth.
So Julie and I are real estate coaches. We drill down on things. We don't just like to throw a bunch of ideas against the wall and see what sticks.
Nope.
We actually want to give you a roadmap and then literally walk hand in hand for you as you accomplish the goals on the roadmap that we co-create with you. The first step for you now is to join Premier Coaching. Just go to premiercoaching.com. In the meantime, guys, tomorrow we're going to get to our real estate predictions for the next 12 to probably 18 months. That show is tomorrow, so make sure you're ready to take more notes. Your homework from today is, of course, to join premiercoaching.com. Have a fantastic day. We'll talk with you on the show tomorrow.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.